but we do have a quorum.
Okay, so we can go ahead and get started if we have a quorum. I now call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. City Clerk, would you please do roll call?
Certainly. Yeah, you got to push one button on the other system real quick. I apologize. Very embarrassing. And start. Okay, and we are... Okay, we are live. Yes, I will. It is 5:34, and I will do roll call. Commissioner Parks.
Present.
Commissioner Barraza.
Present.
Commissioner Singh. Not online. Commissioner Cummings.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Apuda.
Present.
Commissioner Vang.
Here.
Vice Chair Dolan. Not online. And Chair McCoy.
Present. Thank you, City Clerk. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
I have not received any changes to the agenda.
Any proposed changes? No? City Clerk, no proposed changes as well, correct?
Correct. I received no changes or proposed changes to the agenda.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks. I'll motion to approve, but can I just mention, I think Commissioner Singh has been put in as an attendee in the meeting,
Thank you very much.
but I
Thank you,
motion to
Commissioner.
approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Vang.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Certainly. And I didn't quite see Commissioner Singh in attendees. But for the agenda, and the second for that was
Commissioner Vang.
Commissioner Vang. Thank you. And Commissioner Parks.
Yes?
Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh. I don't see him online yet. I will check for him. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang.
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan, if he's arrived. Nope. And Chair McCoy.
Yes.
Thank you. That
Thank you,
passes.
City Clerk. Thank you. We will now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes, February 28th, 2022?
I have received no changes to the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Cummings will make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes?
Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh. Don't see online just yet. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang.
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan. Not online. And Chair McCoy.
Yes.
That passes.
Thank you, City Clerk. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Commissioner McQuay, Chair. There's no update, just that there will be a hearing today, so we'll wait until
when the item 12A comes.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang.
Welcome.
Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have any updates it would like to share? It would like to provide to the commission?
I don't think so, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for a discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I wanted to remind staff that we had talked about having the matter of public safety, the use of rangers coming back to the commission, and I believe it was mentioned that either in March or April, that's when that matter will be presented to the commission. And this is already the middle of April, and I still don't see anything. So that's one item. The other item is that, unfortunately, we had 3 cancellation of the commission meetings, and I did not see an explanation as to why we were canceling the commission. I think it's important for the public to know that we all care about the subject of parks, and this is a high priority for our city. However, if there is the need to cancel because of other pending priorities, other issues, no, that's perfectly okay, but I think we should disclose that information to the public. We can't just not have a meeting because I don't know what the reason might be, but we still continue to have a very important responsibility in the expenditure of Measure P funds and any issues that may be associated with that. So I wanted to make that observation, Madam Chair, and that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Deputy City Attorney Costa, would you like to respond to Commissioner Barraza about the cancellation of meetings?
Sure. The meetings were canceled because there were no agenda items for those meetings. And because this is a Brown Act commission, there's nothing to be discussed unless there's an agenda item.
What about the pending items?
My understanding is those weren't ready to be presented by staff. So there were no items, and items are put on the agenda through Chair McCoy in conjunction with city staff, city administration, and city attorney's office. If any of the commission members ever have an agenda item they wish to have included or considered to be included on the agenda, then you can submit that to the clerk, and then it'll go through the process of consideration.
Any other follow-up questions, Commissioner Barraza?
Well, in this particular case, there was a request to place the item, the subject of public safety and the rangers, the use of the ranger positions, and it was stated by staff they would be coming back. So it wasn't like there wasn't any requested item. It was requested. So if the city staff decided not to put it on, then it's not the commission that's doing that.
So, Deputy City Attorney, does the request for any items to be put on the agenda have to be made in written form, or could it be requested during our meeting times? Because I do recall what Commissioner Barraza is speaking about.
So it can be either way, and I think Director Aguirre has a comment to be made. However, if staff is requested to make a presentation to the commission, but they don't have that presentation ready to be presented, then there's no way to place that on the agenda. There's no authority by this commission to direct staff to bring something back in a specific amount of time.
So Commissioner Barraza, Director Aaron Aguirre, Parks Department, we do have the Park Ranger Program overview coming to you on May 2nd. I know we did mention bringing it in April, but with budget hearings and some fine tuning, we missed today's meeting. So May 2nd, we will have that Park Ranger discussion or workshop in front of you to go through that process and what that program will look like moving forward.
Thank you. That's all I was asking, just a clarification. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I was under the impression that we would be hearing from community groups each time that we met, and that there was somewhat a demand for that. We had responded as commissioners that we wanted to hear from the public, wanted to hear from the various nonprofits that are committed to this, to parks and in the community. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I didn't realize that wasn't enough to have the meeting. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to Commissioner Cummings' comment from city staff?
Maybe I can make a question. Is have we had inquiries from community groups that want to present to the commission?
Commissioner Cummings, I am not aware of any inquiries, and I also have staff monitoring the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission email that comes through the city of Fresno, and there have not been any inquiries since the last set of people that came and spoke before the commission.
Perhaps it would be good for us to put an announcement out again, making sure that the public, especially these groups that are already working with parks and have an interest, shall know that they have the opportunity to speak to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Vane, do you have any reports or comments to make?
Yes, I do. Just bear with me. I took a lot of notes. In the last few weeks, I have been getting up many phone calls from among resident community who use the Vinland Park in District 4. There's an implication that I believe the tennis court has been either refurbished, and so there's an implication that the volleyball players who continue to use that park for over decades, I would say decades, because over 10 to 20 years now, and they've been informed that they're no longer able to use the park no more, and that there has been implication saying that there's been the tennis court is only utilized for tennis player, and then the pickleball, I think there's like a pickleball sport now, which is led by Clovis, from a Clovis lead. And now they're taking that place, and then our volleyball Hmong players are no longer be able to utilize that park. And I think for me, it's just the concern that I have is that, I think there needs to be equity and access to our family versus Hmong or not, Caucasian, African American. But it's alarming because the information our community continues to receive. One day you could reserve the park, the tennis court. The next day, you can't no longer reserve the location to use for volleyball. And then I just want to address who makes the decision. And then another question is, who makes the decision to put a sign up at the park saying that the tennis court is only utilized for tennis ball or tennis and pickle park? Because it makes me feel unease just because our mayor and our city council members striving for one Fresno. And so there's a lot of implication, there's a lot of rumor. And I want to ensure that my community, which is the Hmong community, feel that they're safe, and also they can also participate in the neighborhood park, and that there needs to be some transparency in the park level or the city manager level, because I've been getting phone calls, like at least 1 to 5 phone calls a day, and it's really hurting my community, which is the Hmong community. And I really want to address this. I don't know if I should put this on the agenda, but how do you tell 100 people who show up at a community meeting with our council member, Tyler Maxwell, Wednesday, April 20th, that they no longer have access to Vinland Park. And so there needs to be a solution, either Monday through Friday, mix it up, there's peak hours, figure it out. I don't mind helping out, facilitate some of the conversation. If tennis court is not a location, then you utilizing the green space to build tennis court, volleyball court for our Hmong family. I think there needs to be more explanation from the park department, just because there's very little room for my community to get answer. I know that they're working with Councilmember Maxwell, but as a commissioner of parks, and I'm also Hmong, I think it's important that as a leader, all of us, I think that we need to find an explanation, meet with them, what's going on. I don't really know what was the implication of not having them, not utilizing the tennis court. I know that there might be some wear and tear, but have those conversations. How do I want to be able to respond with a solution oriented. Then, implication is from the parks staff is saying, well, for my people to look for another park to play volleyball. And that's every single person I spoke with said that to me. And to me, there's no equity in that part, and there's no access to my family, my community. And I don't serve just the Hmong community, I serve all community in Fresno. So it's important that we address that today. I think that it's important to hear from the parks director or somebody from the city manager's office, because this has been lingering for the past few weeks now. And my people are hurting. I had people crying to me earlier today, and emotionally. And so, I don't know, that's where I'm at right now. So if anybody wants to respond to that, I'm welcome to be a thought partner and continue to support our city staff and also our community.
Commissioner Vang, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director, thank you for your comments. Signs were placed at multiple parks, not just Vinland. So we had Rotary East, Vinland, as well as Orchid Park. The reason for the posting of the signage is a lot of these courts were just recently resurfaced, and in some cases we had groups coming on, whether they were volleyball groups, bike rodeos, skateboarding, scooters. So in trying to keep the integrity of the courts and the pristine shape of the courts, those signs were posted at multiple parks. In some cases, our newly resurfaced parks, without our permission or knowledge, were painted to show various lines for sporting activities. So that was kind of the reason behind the postage of the signage at those 4 different parks. I have been working with Councilmember Maxwell. I think we have a solution that will resolve the Vinland courts, which will allow for continued volleyball recreation activities. So we will continue to move down that road, but that was the reason. It wasn't to kick anybody out of our parks. That's the last thing we want to do. We're all inclusive in our parks, more so just keeping the integrity of our courts, making sure they're without any issues. So we had, just to kind of give you an idea, expansion joints were dug out so posts could be put into the, those are type of the things that we were seeing. And we just want to make sure that our courts are in pristine shape for all users. But again, I think going forward in the next week or two, we have a solution that will resolve the folks at Vinland who do want to use those courts without having to insert post into the surfacing or kind of the expansion joint. So I think we have a plan going forward, which will eliminate the need for them to bring their own nets out, and then hoping to, in the next week or so, be able to share that plan and release that to the community so they can come back out and enjoy that park.
Well, you've been leading that conversation with Councilmember Maxwell. I would like to be included, just because I've been getting so many phone calls, and it's so important that I'm also transparent with the community, because there's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of hurt in this process. And there was a lot of word that was used. Actually, discrimination was thrown at me. There was a lot of words saying, why does Clovis League take precedent of Fresno community member who lives around the surrounding neighborhood in Vinland Park? There's just a lot of emotional outcry, and I understand, because Fresno, as you know, we all know Fresno is one of the poorest cities in America, right? We have a lot of families who are disadvantaged. A lot of my community members are not able to go join a volleyball league where they can just play volleyball. These are the parks they use to play to recreation and just for leisure. And so it's important that we, when we educate our employees who are providing a response to our community, we need to be a little bit more effective. I think whoever is responding to our Hmong community members, our leaders, they're not really transparent. It gives a negative thought of our parks department that they don't respond well to our community. And also, as a commissioner, it makes me embarrassed because I vouch for Metro P, and that's why I'm here as a park commissioner. And I just want to ensure that we need to also do some education, professional development, culturally sensitive to our community, and be able to respond in a way where our families understand. If we don't have the answer, we need to be able to inform our community saying, hey, you know what, we don't have a response right now, but can you wait for a couple of days, 2-3 days, we'll have someone to respond back, instead of providing them different message each time they call. 1 minute you can reserve to play volleyball, the next minute you can't, the next minute there's a sign. So the implication of our community, they see it very negative, right? There's no positivity. And, it makes me feel really ill just to think about what the experience they're going through. Especially a lot of our community members who had called the Parks Department and then getting multiple different conversation and communication. So that is something I would like to address too, because it's important that I would speak on all community, not just because it's our Hmong community, but, it's really important that if you guys have a plan and to ensure, I know there's many folks on here today that are concerning about this park, and I think they will be speaking in a bit too, but I think it's important to highlight who is the spokesperson for their, for the volleyball folks, and then be able to have that conversation with them too, because they're not aware of like any solution. All they hear is, hey, Meyer, we've been told we have to go look at another park. Just remember, like, transportation, gas is expensive. A lot of our families can't drive. They have to walk to the park, or they have to either take the bus. And so we need to consider all odds before we start communicating to our families. I just wanted to, our community, all community, to have a good, positive experience with our parks, especially with all this Metro P money coming. I'm sure that there's going to be more professional development for our team, but I think we also need to think about having inclusion and being able to see cultural, I don't know if there's a cultural diversity, inclusion, professional development for your team, but I really consider you suggesting that the Parks Department look into that. Because now that I'm seeing with what's happening right now with the communication piece, that's really important to me. So that's my last thought.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. And we work closely with the Office of Community Affairs and work with the community. So that's something that we can always improve on. So I appreciate your comments. And I did talk to Councilmember Maxwell, and you will be a part of those meetings. So those should come up here in the next week.
Also, Aaron, when you guys come back up with the solution, can that be brought back to the commission so we'll know what's being done about that? Because I do echo everything that Commissioner Vang said. I too received a couple of phone calls. So I think most importantly, training your staff, maybe having a cultural diversity training with your staff so they know how to address the communities that they're talking to avoid this type of confusion. And also just having some type of notice posted saying that these courts are going to be resurfaced, and then you'll be able to use them at a later time, because that community is feeling like they have nowhere else to go because they're being kicked out. So just be mindful of the signage that you're placing in front of the parks too, because you should know what's going on. You should not know what's going on. So I think you kind of said that there were lines that were drawn that you did not know that was going on. So just having that open communication with staff so we can avoid a situation like this. Thank you. Dr. Apuda, do you have any reports or comments you would like to bring to the commission?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair McCoy. I would like to echo my fellow commissioners' concerns about the cancellation of meetings, and hearing the explanation, I'd like to support Commissioner Cummings' suggestion that the reason for the cancellations be messaged out to us so that we have that awareness. I would also suggest that we, in advance of the time frame in which we need to get an agenda out, if there are no agenda items, reach out to commissioners to see if there are issues that we would like to discuss or have put on the agenda. Perhaps we had something in mind that we were going to bring up at this meeting, and then that way we could have it in advance. Just to state how I feel it could impact our community, it's as if the commission doesn't have work to do. So it was very concerning to me that we had 3 meetings canceled and with no explanation. So I just want to echo that. The other thing there was one more thing about the cancellation of meetings. I thought there was going to be some additional budget information coming to us. And so that's why it was also surprising to me that the meetings were canceled. The second item I would like to bring up, again, hearing from community members, concerns, and I know staff has been trying hard, and we as a commission have had these conversations about messaging out to the community, but I'm still getting information from community members that I didn't know about this. I didn't know about when the commission meetings were. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. So since I'm getting that information, I want to share it again with us publicly so that we again hear that there are community members that are not getting this information. And one community member I spoke to gave some really specific suggestions of how we could message out. So I'm wondering if maybe on the next commission meeting, that can be an agenda item for us as commissioners to once again give recommendations of ways, places, organizations to reach out to. So maybe we can have 2 weeks to think about it and come back with some real specific suggestions. Many of which I'm sure you will have already been doing, but it gives us an opportunity just once again to do even more to reach out to the community. The third and final item that I'd like to bring up is, again, coming from a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And this is actually something that has struck me from day one of being on this commission. And that is listening to our language. I will say I have an appreciation to WRT. I don't know if I mentioned this already in our commission meeting, but we had talked about in one of our discussions about homeless, and they came back in their report using the term houseless. And I was like, that's a better term, right? So that was learning for me. I would also like to suggest to the commission that we pay attention to our gendered language. I'm not a guy, so when we say you guys, you're not talking to me. So it's a hard lesson. I tell people all the time, when I first started as a director of the Women's Center, I used to say, who's gonna man the booth? And it was all women, so no one was manning the booth. So I had to give thought to, well, what's a better language? And I began saying, who's gonna staff the booth? So it's an ongoing journey and an ongoing process. I'm still learning every day, but I would just recommend we watch and listen to our gendered language. And if we are so moved, to modify our language. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. Commissioner Miller, do you have any reports or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks, any reports or comments?
Thank you, Chair McCoy. Just a couple of comments. First, Dr. Oputa, thank you for that last comment. I've been working on not saying you guys, and it's a challenge, and I will continue trying over and over until I get it right. I also want to take a moment to echo my fellow commissioners' concerns about the meeting cancellations, particularly the fact that this commission, these commission meetings should create space for public comment. So I think we've kind of heard that, just wanted to affirm that. And then I wanted to make a quick comment and I suppose ask a question related to the San Joaquin River Parkway funding allocation. I was down at Jensen River Ranch this afternoon taking a walk in preparation for a nature hike I'll be leading later this week. And first, I have to say, it was so fantastic to see so many people out enjoying the property today. It was a sunny, beautiful afternoon, and I think spring break must still be underway. Lots of families, lots of people enjoying the site. And I made my way down onto the property and visited the restroom just to see if by any chance it was finally unlocked. And sadly, it's not yet. And in fact, there's caution tape up in front of it, which isn't a terribly welcoming sight. So I just wanted to kind of find out what the plan is and the timeline is for the plan for the Parkway funds from Measure P. And also in the survey that we worked on earlier this year, late last year, there were at least a handful of questions specific to getting public input about the San Joaquin River and access to the San Joaquin River. And I was wondering when we would be receiving the results from that part of the survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to Commissioner Parks' questions?
Commissioner Parks, I froze halfway through your questions, but I got the tail end of them. But the survey questions related to the Parkway were included in Director Mosier's presentation related to the budget. So when he was preparing his presentation, I facilitated getting those that data from WRT and sent it to him. So that was part of his presentation. And that's the only part of the question I heard.
Thank you for that. And maybe it's just been so long since our last meeting that I have forgotten. So I will make time to go back and review that. My other question was just related to when we might see the specific plan for the funding for the Parkway that's already been allocated to this fiscal year, or any results, anything that's happening on the Parkway with Measure P funds.
So that would also be through Director Mosier's shop. Essentially, that would be through Bucket 5, and that is facilitated through the Public Works Department, but we can definitely follow up with him and see the most appropriate way to communicate that to you.
Thanks, Aldi.
Also, Aldi, I totally forgot to go back to city staff, but Dr. Oputa had a question about that she was under the impression that we were going to see a budget on how the funds were going to be allocated for this year. Can you respond to that question? And I do see your hand up, Dr. Oputa. I'll get to you in a moment.
Yeah, no problem. Great question, Commissioner Oputa, and the budget will come back before you. So I know it's been a few weeks since we met, but in our last meeting, it was communicated that we would take your recommendations as we build the fiscal year 23 budget. That then goes through all the levels of review. And then when the mayor releases his budget, that will come back before you through this avenue. And then you all will have a second opportunity to weigh in related to your recommendations.
Thank you. Dr. Oputa, do you have any other follow-up questions?
Yes, thank you. Not a question. I had wanted to bring before some recommendations when I say not thinking about whether to use the term you guys. So I appreciate Commissioner Parks' comment. And so some alternatives I just wanted to share with you are y'all is always a good one. You folks, everyone, etc. My favorite though is y'all.
Thank you. Aaron, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Parks. Commissioner Parks, the restrooms down below that you're referring to, according to Public Works, have been vandalized. They're working on a cost estimate and a repair plan, so we can get you that update here in the next probably week.
I'm sorry to hear about the vandalism, but that's great. I look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Barraza, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add to the comment relating to the draft budget items that were supposed to come back to us. I really would like to remind staff not to wait until the last minute. We know that there is a review process within the city structure, but there's nothing wrong with starting to have a dialogue with the commission when the information is still very, in draft form, and allow the commission to have input. And I know that we had a conversation about certain items that didn't have numbers, and that was the reason why the commission didn't like that information. But if there is already a sense of what's going to be recommended from Measure P in draft form, and it could be just for the purpose of a give and take from the commission. Every commissioner must have very good ideas, but don't wait until that's in concrete, where we can't even have any say, or if we do, it's already like a foregone conclusion. I think timing of that information coming to this commission, and I really agree with the comment that budget information was supposed to come to us during those meetings that were canceled. So that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is Commissioner Singh on, sir, City Clerk?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. I apologize. I was driving earlier and I added me into the Zoom as an attendee rather than as a panelist. There's a couple of items I would like to discuss today. First is just echoing everyone's concerns regarding the meeting cancellations. 3, one is already a lot, but 3 is just excessive. In my eyes, I feel that this is a space where community can come and give their input, their concerns, voice any suggestions that they have. And if we are canceling our meetings back to back to back, it takes that space away. The second item I wanted to ask or talk about was similar to as Commissioner Vang was saying, the Hmong community and Vinland Park. I had the opportunity to actually attend the community meeting that they held on last Wednesday, and well, one, it was just amazing to see the turnout there. I learned that we have 800 to 1,000 folks who are actually part of the volleyball league, which is amazing in my eyes. And really just got an opportunity to listen to the people that play on those courts every day. And I had tried to add the item as an agenda today. I had requested the item to be put on Thursday, that we discuss it as an official item, because I wanted to also add the picture of the sign itself, because it's actually very frustrating that the sign would be put up, and the director was able to come on and give some reasonings today, but I'll just read it. It says it has a park's official symbol on it, and then it says court use for tennis and pickleball only, and I think they spelled pickleball wrong, by the way, but that's besides the point. The point is that I hear the director's concerns that or not concerns, but comments regarding that folks are worried about the wear and tear on the courts, and but my question is also, like, does pickleball and tennis not also have wear and tear on the courts? A lot of the community members at the community meeting voiced concerns that now that the city is finally investing in Vinland Park, like now they felt like it wasn't very much a coincidence that the sign was put up now that they're investing in the park, right? Now that they're seeing improvements being made on the park. I know we're going to hear from quite a few of the community members today, which I'm really happy to see that the space being utilized for what it's supposed to be used for. But going back to both of these items, one was, our meetings are being canceled, and second was, the community are, voicing the concerns about Vinland Park and the signs that are being placed that, it's for pickleball and tennis only. I had requested both of these items to be put on the agenda last Thursday, and neither of them were. And so I got some answers today from Todd, thankfully, as to how the process works. But if I could just, understand, were there specific, and maybe this is more so a question for you, Chair McCoy, or someone else on the city team, as to, is there a better process than an email, or is there something that I should do next time to ensure that these items are placed on the agenda?
Anyone from city staff would like to answer? Commissioner Singh?
So Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, items from the commissioners come through the chair, and then the chair would let the city know if that's an item to be put on the agenda.
So my question is, when is the time frame? Because I know that we do have a park agenda setting meeting, and then we talk about the items that are on the agenda or that we receive, and then the agenda is approved. So what is the time frame to get other requests on that come in after those meetings? Because that request was sent Thursday night.
So as I previously mentioned, the agenda is set in conjunction between Chair McCoy, the clerk, city staff, city administration, and the city attorney's office. Receiving an item late Thursday night could possibly go on the agenda. However, that may not allow city staff enough time to prepare information to be presented at the next meeting. And so a decision would be made between all of those members involved in setting the agenda, as well as there will at times be things that are not within the jurisdiction of this commission that may also not make the agenda. And so those are decided, like I said, between all of the people previously mentioned.
So as a precaution or something, can I implement having all requested items to be put on the agenda sent to me by Wednesday? That way I can get them to you and they can go on the agenda before it's finalized?
Well, you can send those in, but again, as I just mentioned, getting something to city staff, if you are expecting some sort of presentation, a handful of days before the commission meeting may not provide city staff to enough time to actually research and present the information to the commission.
Okay, so in moving forward, can I have all commissioner members, if they would like to have any type of items put on the agenda, to send those to me by Tuesday? That way I can try to get them on the agenda and we can avoid a situation like this. I think that would be helpful for all.
Yeah,
sure. And
sounds good.
Go ahead, Todd.
This is actually Harvin. I wanted to say that completely understand, by the way, and Chair McCoy, I just wanted to get a little bit more knowledge about the process. This wasn't by any means, asking why you didn't put it on the agenda, because this isn't by any means your fault. It's just that was like a very late notice too. So I understand, and from me at least, you will get future items to be, requested by Tuesday.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that I honor all requests and get them in on a timely manner to try to get them on the agenda. But by that item coming in Thursday night, I knew it was going to be hard to get that on the agenda, so I was pushing for the next Parks Commission meeting to have that put on the agenda. So just to avoid a situation like this, if I can get them by Tuesday, that way I can do my best to get them on the agenda and get them out so we can get more public input, and then all the commissioners' requests would be honored.
And just as a reminder to all the commissioners, this commission is subject to the Brown Act. So when you send in those agenda items, please do not include any other commissioners on that email other than Chair McCoy. But you may CC city staff, administration, the clerk, etc.
So with that being said, could I request that the next meeting we have, well, I mean, first I'd like to hear from the community members actually, but for the next meeting at least, I'd like that we put on the agenda to, in some way, shape, or form, continue the commission meetings, even if there aren't items put on the agenda, at least so that we are open for public comment. And so I don't know how that would look, considering, you know, if city staff is saying that we have these meetings based on if there are items on the agenda or not, could we put it on the agenda that we are taking public comment every meeting, and then once public comment is finished, you know, that'd be the end of the meeting then.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Aldi, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Commissioner Singh, we can do that. We can put a hearing on the agenda, and that will allow space for the community to come and speak.
Thank you, Aldi. Commissioner Vang?
Just to echo back from earlier from my conversation, are we able to make a recommendation that the director come back and do a follow-up on the event in park, like place it on the next agenda item for the next meeting? Can we do it today? Are we able to make a motion?
So it would be outside of the jurisdiction of this commission to direct the director to bring something, but you may request the director to bring forth a presentation. Okay. So it would not require a motion and a recommendation. It would simply require you emailing Chair McCoy the request.
Thank you, Christy. Appreciate
You're welcome.
Thank you, City Clerk. Did Co-Chair Vice Dolan get on yet?
No, I do not see Vice Chair Dolan.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to City Administration and Park Staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission? Is City Administration on? Any reports or comments?
TJ, that would be you.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've been at one of these. Glad to see you all again. I'm in the Assistant City Manager's office now, and I'm getting up to speed. I've had a transition from personnel since I've seen you last, so you'll have to bear with me. I do want to just speak to some of the comments, just letting you know that the administration with the mayor, we're still currently working on the FY23 budget requests. As you can imagine, with the amount of departments that are involved, it's a very large budget, lots of different elements to it. So we should be wrapping up the review of that and packaging it together. And as soon as that information can be communicated, it will be on the agenda. In listening, Commissioner Cummings brought up the inquiries by our community partners to speak. So any recommendations that you have on how we can get that word out, that would be great. That's the type of activity that we do want to see on these calls so that we can have that very good dialect. I appreciate the recommendation for the cultural training, and I'll work with Director Aguirre to ensure that we get and utilize PRO's services to help us with that, as well as Office of Community Affairs. And the other thing I was thinking through, and I'll work with our team, we can probably have a standing item on the agenda that will keep these meetings moving forward. If you're up for just like an update on upcoming events, types of things that are happening, because in parks, we're always, moving through, whether it's splash pads, Camp Fresno, the aquatic season after school. I'm sure there'll be enough to have an update, and that will keep the meetings moving and flowing forward. And if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't this evening, I will bring you an update next meeting.
Thank you, TJ. That will be helpful to have a standing item on the agenda to keep these meetings moving forward. I think the commissioners will really appreciate that, as well as myself. If there are no other questions for TJ, we're going to move on to the park staff and see if they have any reports or comments for the commission.
Oh, 1 second. This is Commissioner Singh again. Sorry. Just because it reminded me of an event that's happening in the near future on May 14th at Just One Sing Collar Park. There's going to be a mural unveiling happening. So just wanted to throw that an invite out to the community and to all the fellow commissioners and staff that there'll probably be some community games, probably resource tables and stuff. So if you are interested, definitely feel free to hit me up, and we can see if any of your partner organizations want to come by and provide any resource there, or they want to come by and just join us. Just feel free to email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
As Commissioner McCoy, or Chair McCoy, Aaron Aguirre, Director, just wanted to update you guys on the recent, excuse me, Dr. Aputa, y'all, on the update. I'm learning. So this past weekend was our Easter weekend, one of the biggest holidays here in the Parks Department. Happy to report that our parks were at capacity. As we kind of release and kind of the restrictions from COVID are eased, we were able to allow reservations at our picnic pavilions, which the community took us up on that, and all reservations were intact for Saturday and Sunday, even with the cooler weather. Sunday, as you can imagine, both parks were at capacity. We did have to limit the participants in, so we monitored that with our parking enforcement. As folks left, we allowed more in. So all in all, a nice, safe, and clean Easter. We had multiple staff members out manning or staffing the park, and we had restroom attendants. We had folks out there just making sure the park was clean but putting our best foot forward. In addition to that, today is an exciting day in our regional parks. We are releasing today our pay on foot mobile unit. So now the next 30 days, we're doing kind of a soft launch in our regional parks, Woodward and Roding. So it will change the way folks come in and pay for their parking. Right now, we do have booths set up with park attendants that will accept cash. The new method will be more mobile. You're allowed to use your phone or use the pay on foot stations. Form of payment will be still be cash, or you can use credit cards, your Google account, Apple Pay, things of that nature. So we're excited to report on that. And again, over the next 30 days, we will continue to educate our patrons on how we can better deliver entrance into our parks. So that's something that we wanted to report and excited to report to everybody on the call today. So thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? You have 3 minutes.
We do have several hands on Zoom, and let me check the attendance in the council chamber. Are there any members of the public in the council chamber that would like to speak? We have no members in the chamber. First up on Zoom, we have Alan Mua. Alan, go ahead and unmute yourself. And you have, was it 3 minutes, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Mua, and I'm a Fresno community member. I've been involved as an athlete in Fresno for about 12 years. Being a part of the sports community has provided many experiences for me, including leadership, social skills, and lifelong friendships. It's been a crucial part of my life as a community member and has kept me close to home. Even though I live 8 hours away from school, I'm here to address the current events at Vinland Park. In the years I played sports, there has already been limited spaces to play, and events like these are not unheard of in the sports community. We have seen renovation at parks for various sports, such as Romaine Park, where they changed the tennis courts to basketball courts and created better lighting. But in the decade I played sports, I've seen very little done to support Fresno's large volleyball community. This is important for our community because developing better and more equitable space benefits our communities and future generation. It will produce more leaders like myself and influence youth to stay on a healthier and accessible path. It will also further equip them with the necessary tools for them to strive and achieve their goals. I ask that Fresno Parks to maintain its equity by supporting all sports, including volleyball, and acknowledge the cultural values that come with sports. With our current limited resources in the volleyball community, I would like to see park expansions or even a local public gym that our community can utilize. I thank you for your time and conclude my comment.
Thank you. And next up, we have Jaeb Lee. Jaeb, please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission. My name is Jaia Lee, and I'm a Fresno community organizer with Hmong Innovating Politics. I'm speaking today to show my support for the issues concerning Vinland Park and all of the city's parks that have had signs placed on their tennis courts restricting only to tennis and pickleball recently. I have a personal connection to Vinland Park. As a youth, I remember specifically driving to Vinland Park to go play volleyball every other night because it was central to everyone, there was adequate lighting for safety, and it was free to use. Because I played volleyball, it served as a free and accessible resource for my mental health, physical health, and kept me off the streets. There's a prominent outdoor volleyball community that's been in Fresno for 20 plus years that's been made up of mostly Hmong and Southeast Asian Americans and will only continue to grow. It is crucial to not only preserve the tennis courts for both volleyball, tennis, and other recreational sports that need the court space, but to also create parks with actual volleyball courts to serve the growing community. With Fresno being the second highest Hmong populated city in the nation, banning this growing community would be a disservice from the city of Fresno to the residents it is supposed to serve. The signs last week made me and my community feel banned and cut off from a resource we have the rights to access. The signs were discriminatory and it made it feel like we did not belong in that space, right? It felt like we were being pushed out to the outskirts of the town, and it felt like we couldn't access those courts that we've been accessing for 20 plus years before it was renovated. My ask of the commission is to take off the signs at the Vinland Park and build volleyball courts for the growing demands of the residents of Fresno, California. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Calvin Zhang. Calvin, you may unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address council.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, my name is Calvin. I'm 20 years old and a volleyball player in the Hmong community. I would like to thank you guys for making time to be here today to hear what we all have to say. This is a very important day for us because we are here in front of you. I am here to address the signs that have been put up at the parks limiting tennis courts to only tennis and pickleball. I remember as a kid driving across town to volleyball practices, and during the drive, I would always question why we always hopped around park just to get to play instead of going to the same park. My community and I are here today because we have a very important ask for you. But first, let me share with you the history of our community here to give you some context. Fresno is historically known to be unfriendly to outsiders with many prejudiced practices, from red lining to not allowing Armenian people to own businesses or property, to the segregation and Japanese encampments, to when the local city officials denied no direct Hmong resettlement from Thailand was allowed in Fresno, and many Fresnians were fearful that the Hmong would bring diseases. Now, Hmong refugees face harassment and resentment acts we would label as racism today from local Fresno residents, and were even spoken out against the local city officials at the time. Police were called on them for just being Hmong. This particular incident is documented in the LA Times, where a white man called the police on her neighbors because she thought the Hmong people were the ones who killed her son in Vietnam. Fresno is home to one of the largest populations in the nation, second to Minnesota. Fresno may be home to Hmong people, but Fresno has not welcomed the Hmong people, even to this day. Over 40 years we settled in Fresno. There is nothing here to present that Fresno welcomes the Hmong people. When there were 15,000 of our grandparents, parents, aunts, and uncles in the 1980s when they changed the whole landscape of education in Fresno, driving the school districts to a year-round school system. Trauma that is rooted in our history of Fresno does not lay on your shoulders. That is not my point. Today, you have the ability to affirm our resilience, show our grandparents and parents, our community along with us, the youth, that Fresno welcomes the Hmong people, culture, and traditions, and values us in the threads of the fabric that makes up Fresno. Give us a space that is intentional in educating the broader
Can you wrap up your comments, Mr. Zhang, please?
We have 30 seconds to go.
Okay. I would just like to say that down the sign will not change anything because it is a systemic issue that is representative of discriminatory behavior, and I demand a safe space. I encourage you to work with organizations like A Whole Phone Counter, who's been doing work with our recreational groups for over 7 years, and group like the Asian American Collaborative. Thank you.
Right at 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And next we have Pedro Navarro Cruz. Mr. Cruz, you may unmute yourself and address council. You have 3 minutes.
Dear Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission, thank you all for the opportunity to speak. My name is Pedro Navarro Cruz. I'm a community organizer with CNC Education Fund, District 3 resident, and a proud product of Fresno Parks. I wanted to take this time to share 3 budget priorities that our committee, the Fresno Parks Advocates United, came up with for the upcoming City of Fresno fiscal year 2022-2023 budget hearing priorities. We sincerely hope that you can support these recommendations, which, by the way, an additional 28 people have signed on and/or emailed their support of these same priorities. We did this last minute during Easter weekend since we were unsure if the meeting would be canceled like the prior two. But the priorities are as follows. $5 million for a participatory budget engagement process. With the recent introduction of Measure P, we envision a process to be exclusive to a project related to parks, rec, and/or arts. What a better way to kick off Measure P than to have a direct democracy determine a major city project. This process would ensure that a larger portion of the population would understand the changes and opportunities with Measure P by participating in a process that would result in a project coming into fruition. Recommendation number 36 of the Commission of Police Reform recommends that the city should engage in a participatory budget process to determine community priorities. This is very needed in Fresno, not only from a park standpoint, but as a whole. Cities all over the world, including Sacramento and Vallejo, are benefiting from this process. We should too in Fresno. Our second priority is $300 for a youth activities fee waiver voucher program. We would like to see this amount be designated for youth in underserved areas of the city and not exceed $100 per year per child. Also, this fund would allow youth to use their voucher to participate in activities with independent organizations and businesses that operate within the city of Fresno. This voucher would not be exclusive to parks programming, but include all of their programming available to youth. The County of San Diego was able to use ARPA funds. Our city is able and should do the same. Our third budget priority is $75,000 to conduct a representative sample survey. A representative sample study is an unbiased reflection of what the population is like. It's a sophisticated study that can provide a better guide to serving the city of Fresno's residents by ensuring everyone is heard. It's a more holistic alternative than the current process of using SurveyMonkey to base the responses to guide Measure P implementation. As the SurveyMonkey results come in, it's clear that the survey is being successful in reaching historically overrepresented groups and failing to reach historically disenfranchised communities that Measure P is supposed to serve. A representative sample survey is needed to better inform the needs and wants of all of Fresno and not only a select few. The city has more than enough money to make this happen. $86 million in ARPA funds, the estimated $30 million a year through Measure P funds, and the $400 million plus available in the city's general fund. We're not asking for much, but we know these investments will go a long way. The city has acknowledged that community and civic engagement are not their forte. I urge the good people of this commission to start changing the narrative of who gets heard and who doesn't by supporting these transformative measures.
And you're at your 3 minutes.
I think it's completely unfair that communities that have been using these courts for 20 plus years were not reached out to and listened to prior to determining to exclude certain sports and not allow certain sports in the courts. Show the same dynamic of ensuring everyone is important, and this will not happen. In addition to using these courts 20+ year, sports that
would you please?
volleyball and street soccer have been played.
We're at 3 minutes, so you'll need to wrap up your comments, sir.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. In addition to using these courts for 20+ years, sports that have been that serve more people like volleyball and street soccer have been played at these courts, including at Villain Park. It does not make sense to me that why there is so much priority and entitlement on sports that are 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. In addition to cultural sensitivity, we need the previously given priorities to putting a systemic end to these situations. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do ask all participants, please, to try to stay within those 3 minutes. Next up is Katie Mua. Katie, you can unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Katie Mua. I'm a lifelong resident of District 4. I've lived in this district even though I moved about 3 times. I'm the Director of Programs at Hmong Innovating Politics, which is located in the El Dorado Park area, and I'm the co-chair of the Asian American Collaborative. I can speak about how heartbroken I was last week to go see my community gathered because they felt pushed out. And it sucks that I had to be at that place, not to celebrate my community, but to stand up for community. I'm here to speak about this issue because our community has utilized these courts for so many years, and we had never once asked the Parks Commission or the city to make courts for us, and we have adapted. And now that we are able to adapt, we're getting pushed out. Courts and parks will receive wear and tear because they're being used, and you should be proud that these resources are created and being used by your community. That's what they're supposed to do. And that on the commission in the city, it is your responsibility to take the public investment to make these areas better so that folks can continue to utilize them and invest in their mental and physical health. Isn't that why we passed Measure P? Isn't that why we have this commission? There are better solutions to what had happened last week, but it is obvious that the solution that the Parks Department decided on was exclusive, and it was obvious that it prioritized one group over another, and that is why we are here making these comments today. We can bring in the theme around gentrification and how that, once these courts are finally revamped, we are being pushed out, that we are no longer wanted in these spaces. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say today. I'm going to get too emotional, but I will continue to follow up on this issue. As the co-chair of the Asian American Collaborative, our resolution item number 3 is holding the city accountable to creating safe spaces for the Asian American community. And so our collaborative is working with the Asian American Community Liaison and in contact with the City District 4 council member. And we hope that this commission will also support this issue today and create and find a solution that is inclusive of all communities. I think one of the issues I brought up was that there was a line made on the court because it was to mark where the volleyball, court should be. If that was the issue, then it shouldn't be to kick off the court, but to make that court inclusive of all different types of sports that can be played on there. And because that was the solution that Parks Department decided on, it is very obvious about the community they choose to prioritize, and it's obvious the community that they want to access their parks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lydia Gomez. Lydia, you please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Hi, actually it's Lisa Flores. I did not know I didn't switch my name over. Sorry. You bested me on an alias.
Thank you, Lisa.
First off, I want to agree and concur with the Hmong community. This is not the first time that a group or a community that have used a resource in a park have been basically booted out and not consulted, because that happened to me and 3 dog groups that use roading, and how we were affected and not reached out and included in the environmental review process when Chaffee took over our dog park. And what I found really shocking then, and it seems like it's a systematic problem within the Parks Department, is they knew we were there. They knew we were there for more than 5 years. We've celebrated over 10 years at roading, so you need to listen and you need to do better, Parks Department. But what I'm actually here tonight to speak about is what I'm reading in the news about Measure P money being used to buy the Tower Theater. And I have 3 issues of concern. One is there's no talk about how are the union workers that work at the Tower Theater going to be transitioned over to city workers. Is it going to be full-time, part-time? Are they getting benefits? What's the deal? I'm a union girl. I want to see those union jobs continue. I also have an issue with Measure P money being used in the indemnification process. Especially, my question is, why is the city indemnifying the Dottie's estate, especially since it appears that they're going to be, Larry's lied. There's so many statements from him out of his mouth publicly that are just lies. And the city is going to use tax dollars and Measure P money to indemnify him. I'm scratching my head. Somebody needs to explain that one to me. And will Larry be part of the management of the Tower Theater? Because if this goes through, this person, one single person that was representing the estate and is also the management of the Tower Theater is going to be a triple dipper into taxpayer coffers. First, he's going to financially gain from the sale, 6.5. I don't know how it's going to be divided. Then today, Fresno B came out with the Venture Church plans to sue Larry and the city. And, if he's going to get 6.5 million, he has enough to pay for his own attorney. And once again, will he be retaining his job as management over the Tower Theater? So my question to you is...
We're at 3 minutes.
Okay, what's going to happen with the Measure P money in relationship to the Tower Theater? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And the last hand I see on Zoom is May Tao. May, you can unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. My name is Mai Tao, and I am a City of Fresno resident. I'm also a member of the Fresno Hmong volleyball community and also serve on the City of Fresno Asian American Collaborative that worked with the city to implement the anti-Asian hate resolution passed last year. I would like to raise concerns about how the Parks and Recs Department has responded to Hmong volleyball players at Vinland Park with the new signs authorized and posted by the city. So I really just want to be serious and say this isn't about volleyball versus pickleball. This is about equity and access to public goods. And this is about racialized access to power within city government and city resources. So we know that communities of color, including Hmong volleyball players, have been playing at under-resourced parks like Vinland, Holland, Einstein, Romaine Park for over 2 decades before Measure P. Now that the parks are being upgraded and fixed, primarily white pickleball players have been showing up to these parks, some of them not being respectful and demanding to not share community public space on these tennis courts. I would like to share our experience communicating with park staff and trying to be amicable and working with the pickleball players so we can all play at these parks. First, we were asked to formally make reservations and pay a fee to the city to reserve and resolve any disputes over playing space. We did that. Then the following week, we were not able to make reservations for volleyball specifically. So we followed your rules, then you changed them, and instead of initially telling us about how and why the signs were put up, park staff told us to just go play at another park. This is not an acceptable solution. So we continued to seek answers and communicate with park staff, and we were told that there were complaints about vandalism being committed by the volleyball players, and therefore that is why volleyball is no longer allowed. So now you have allegations coming from primarily white pickleball players about Hmong volleyball players committing crimes at these parks. Were these complaints actually investigated and substantiated by park staff, which then led to the decision of the signage going up? I don't think so. And lastly, it was finally revealed by park staff that the pickleball players have a grant, which they didn't share what kind of grant with us. And therefore, that's why the pickleball players have rights to the tennis courts, and we are the ones who are told to go play elsewhere. So at first glance, this may seem like an innocent sign. And according to what Director Gary said earlier, quote, an effort to preserve the integrity of the court, but I refuse to accept this reason. As Parks Commissioners, I hope you look into this issue and provide transparency for the community because the city staff is not providing that at the moment. We would like to understand how the decision was made, who made it, and what are the next steps to work through this issue. We do want to find a solution together, and we're not saying that other folks who play different sports cannot be in coexistence with volleyball players at these really important parks for all of the communities. But we want to work through a fair and just process. And if the city doesn't want to do that, then that's why we're coming here today to the park commissioners. So hopefully you can help us through this process. Thank you.
Right at 3 minutes. Thank you, Mai. And we have one other hand on Zoom, and that is Jeskeet Kaur. Jeskeet, you can unmute yourself and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you. Good evening, Parks Commission. My name is Jeskeet Kaur. I'm an organizer with the Jakarta movement, a lifelong Fresno resident, but I'm attending tonight also as a co-chair of the Fresno Asian American Collaborative. I just wanted to echo all the sentiments Commissioner Vang, Commissioner Singh, and the Hmong community members before me that have spoken about just the equity when it comes to parks in Fresno. I had an opportunity also to attend the community meeting at Vinland Park last week that was held by the Fresno Hmong volleyball team with Councilmember Maxwell in attendance. And I have to say that, like as a community member, this issue just felt very targeted to the Hmong community, a community that has called Vinland Park home for, practices and tournaments for over 2 decades now. So it, after that meeting, it seems that the city is on board with moving forward and investing to provide some sort of space to play, but I'm curious to see what Parks is planning. And just beyond that, some concerns I wanted to highlight are just the lack of spaces in general for Fresno volleyball team to have their practices, lack of safe parks to be specific, for them to really come together, park lighting, court reservations. These are all issues that I think the Parks Committee needs to further up, just follow up on. The sign itself was very disrespectful to the Hmong community, and if the Hmong volleyball team isn't welcome to play on this tennis courts, then there needs to be a development at that park where they can play. This team, as others have said, has over 800 to 1,000 players, and that's a big deal. And they deserve a place to play on at a regular basis. So, Director Aguirre, I'm looking forward to see what these updates and what the meetings and what the plan is. So I'll be just be sure to hear from me in the future as well too, because I do want to stay on top of this topic. So. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeskeet. And there's one last hand, Dow Lore. I will unmute you, or you now can unmute yourself and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. My name is Dow. Also, thank you to the commission. I like to, everybody talk a lot about devolvation. I like to just echo that, and as well as seek solution. To my understanding, there's not enough volleyball courts in most of the parks. As a matter of fact, consider that we have over 800 to 1,000 volleyball players. Why don't we look into building more, volleyball courts on each park? Because if I'm correct, there's not a specific park that has a designated volleyball court for the community. And we've probably seen this over and over at Einstein Park, where the community will go to these court, which is tennis or pickleball, and they'll just put up the net. They're being creative. So I urge the commissioner to look into building volleyball courts for the community, for the Hmong volleyball community, or the volleyball community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is one last hand, Brandy News Villegas. Ms. Villegas, you may unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address council. Commission.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just waiting for it to pop up. I want to speak, I know that there has been an effort with organizations like CNC to recommend uses for Measure P money. And I wanted to support several of the efforts that were brought up. I'm joining late, so it sounds like there's good stuff before me, but I don't know exactly which ones they were. But a youth activities fee waiver voucher program. I worked in rec, not in Fresno, but I would have loved to have done that. But I've worked with kids and understand the needs, financial hardship that some things can be for kids, and how important it is for all kids to be able to access the active things with the recreation program. So I ask you guys to implement the $300,000 for a youth activities fee waiver, and as well as some of the other things that they were asking for, as far as money to conduct a representative sample survey to get to hear from the community, as you know, that community input is extremely important, but it takes a lot of work, as well as funding. Just doing what we can to get more input in there, but that is the voucher program and participation were major things I wanted to echo from some of the community members and voice and ask that you that consider that and the letters that have been submitted regarding those items. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are no more hands. And I would just like to let the commissioners know you did receive an email earlier today. There were 17 public comments submitted by the e-comment feature, and we forwarded those messages and emails to you, and they were all the same item that Pedro Navarro Cruz and Brandy Nuez-Villegas were mentioning, the budget recommendations. So you should all have those, and they are available to the public on the website as well. They were attached to the unscheduled communication. And with that,
Thank you.
Turn it over to Chair McCoy.
Thank you, City Clerk. We will now move on to hearings, actions pertaining to the Cultural Art Plan Consultant Selection, item number 22-603. And then we will also have a workshop regarding City of Fresno Cultural Arts Plan and proposed agreement between City of Fresno and Network for Culture and Arts Policy. Number 2, resolution recommended to City Council, the 63rd Amendment to the Annual Appropriation Resolution, number 2021-178, to appropriate $150,000 for a consultant services agreement to develop the City of Fresno's Cultural Arts Plan. Would someone from the Parks Department please begin the workshop portion of this item?
Yes, of course. Clerk, may I have permission to share my screen, please?
Certainly. Working without a mouse. Oh, I don't want to click the wrong button. All right. I think you are good to go.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. All right, so as Chair McCoy mentioned tonight, we're going to start out with a workshop related to the Cultural Arts Plan Consultant Selection. And then part 2 of this item will be related to the Annual Appropriations Resolution, and that will be where you all take a vote. So getting started here. The city obtained the professional services of the Fresno Arts Council for the selection of a consultant to produce the Cultural Arts Plan. And some of this information may be new to some of you, and some of this may be repetitive, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody the overview and then get into more of the specifics. So Lydia Gomez, who's also joined us here tonight on Zoom, led that request for proposals, also known as an RFP from the Fresno Arts Council. That RFP was advertised from September 13th, 2021 to December 7th, 2021. At the time of close on December 7th, only one proposal was received. And due to only receiving one proposal, the RFP deadline was extended to February 7th, 2022. And upon that deadline, 5 proposals were received. I wanted to take note that the RFP was advertised on the Fresno Arts Council website and social media, the California Arts Council website, City Council offices and city departments, the mayor's office and their social media, the Parks Department listserv of over 500 people, and over 300 art-related vendors on Planet Bids. The Fresno Arts Council, in conjunction with the city, conducted an evaluation process of the proposals, and that included a selection committee. That selection committee was made up of 5 people, 3 members of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission, also known as the Cultural Arts Subcommittee, 1 board member of the Fresno Arts Council, and the Parks Department Assistant Director. The selection committee evaluated all 5 proposals and held interviews with the top 3 proposers. Following the interviews, the selection committee unanimously recommended award of the consultant services agreement to the proposer Network for Culture and Arts Policy, otherwise known as NCAP. And I just want to tell you a little bit about NCAP. They are a full-service research and consulting firm with operations in vibrant arts communities, including New York City, Washington, D.C., and Denver. NCAP has experience with case studies that include a needs and opportunity assessment and multi-channel communications planning for the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society, as well as program evaluation and cultural plan development for the Navy Pier, the historic landmark in the city of Chicago. And in collaboration with the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research, NCAP is currently undertaking an extensive research project investigating the impact of changing American political discourse of the 1970s on urban and cultural realms. The annual appropriations resolution, otherwise known as an AAR, is before you tonight for $150,000. In other words, what that means is that the proposed agreement between the city and NCAP would be for a total fee of $150,000. I do want to note that the RFP originally outlined a fee of $75,000 for the plan. However, after receiving the proposals and really digging into the scope of services, additional community outreach was needing to be added to the NCAP scope to ensure that we heard all of Fresno. For example, adding additional in-person meetings, adding virtual community meetings, and also attending the Fresno Youth Commission meeting. We heard you loud and clear in some of our previous meetings about making sure we hear Fresno's youth. And so we wanted to encompass that in their scope as well. And of course, adding this additional outreach in return takes more labor, and that was a significant component of why the cost increased. So moving into the scope and the schedule of what's next, right? So the first arrow here on the slide represents the consultant services agreement and the annual appropriations resolution going to City Council for consideration on April 28th. Following this, the project will kick off, and NCAP will conduct research, including reviewing relevant existing documents and plans, such as the Parks Master Plan, local media and literature on cultural and artistic history of Fresno, and a comparative analysis of peer cities. NCAP will then produce a research work plan, which will establish benchmarks, data collection methodologies, and a detailed timeline. In addition to this research work plan, NCAP will also produce a communications and engagement plan, which will outline their strategies for community input across Fresno. These steps are captured in the second arrow, and they will take place from May to August. And this is essentially a planning phase, and to ensure that what they plan to do and how they plan to do it is agreeable with the city of Fresno and our stakeholders. Then if we look into the third arrow, we are into September and October, where community engagement will take place, including but not limiting to in-person community meetings, virtual community meetings, interviews with community stakeholders, as well as a survey. From that community engagement, NCAP will put together a summary of their findings, and they will be open to a discussion on ways to utilize those findings and how to translate those into the cultural arts plan. From there, the consultant will start putting the plan together in December, and the plan completion is slotted for March of 2023. So in this completed plan, I wanted to just highlight some of the things that we anticipate seeing, and that this plan will ultimately help move the city of Fresno forward with Measure P funding. So current cultural and artistic practices and preferences, valued cultural assets in Fresno, desires and needs of the community around arts and culture, programming and funding priorities, as well as proposed policy changes. So this is a brief overview of the selection process. We understand there's going to be a discussion around this tonight. That's why we wanted to bring forward a workshop in addition to just the action item. And then I'll end on just laying the foundation for what that action item will be, and then we can open it up for a discussion. So the commission's role tonight will be that you will take a vote recommending or not recommending the AAR to City Council. On the slide here is the language that could be used to make the motion. So essentially you will be recommending to City Council the 23rd Amendment to the Annual Appropriations Resolution number 2021-178 to appropriate $150,000 for a consultant services agreement to develop the City of Fresno's cultural arts plan. And with that, we'll conclude my presentation and open it up for commission comments and questions.
Before I go to commission for questions, I would like to go out to the public to see if any member of the public would like to make a comment regarding this item. You have up to 2 minutes.
We do have some hands on Zoom, and let me check the council chamber. Nobody in the council chamber for comment. So first on Zoom, we have Lydia Gonzalez Chavez. Lydia, you can unmute yourself and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Lydia Gonzalez Chavez, Executive Director of the Fresno Arts Council. And I would just like to begin by thanking Aldi for all the work that she did in assisting to move this forward, along with the Arts Committee of the Commission, who were actively involved in reviewing the applications and participated fully in the recommendation that's moving forward. I believe that there are some issues that have been modified since the committee first met. Some of those were made by city staff. I think in the future it would be helpful if the Arts Council was more actively engaged in those processes. There are some issues related to the extended time frame and some of the activities that are being added that may have looked a little different with the Arts Council's input. However, overall, I think that the recommendation is a good one, and I hope that the commission will be supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilia. And next up on Zoom, we have Miss Lisa Flores. You may unmute yourself, Lisa, and you have 3 minutes to address council.
Oh, I just want to go into the public outreach. I think it's very, very behoovant of whoever the contractor is, and the process that needs to be involved is community outreach, not putting it on the city clerk's website and assuming everybody's going to see it, because that just doesn't work in Fresno. Actually knocking on doors, going to the parks and actually having some of the meetings there. Also too, there are a lot of community groups that meet at parks that the parks department's workers kind of know who they are, but nobody really knows who they are. I mean, just look what happened with the 1,000 Hmong volleyball players at was it Vinland? Or, you know, the dog groups over at Roding and Woodward. You know, we're there, you just don't know who we are because no one's ever cared to find out. So, you know, I hope that the community outreach also does an assessment of not only the organized people that, you know, schedule and pay money for the facilities, but people that just consistently show up. You know, I'm always there on Wednesdays. I'm always there with the Chihuahuas on Wednesdays. You know, Tiny Paws are throughout different places in town. You know, we're here. You just never reach out to us. And, you know, so it also adds the element of cultural competency as well to the communities that are here, because that is the one thing that the city of Fresno no matter what aspect the city goes out to the community, they really lack, and it's just so grossly underrated. So once again, reach out. We're out here. Come and find us because we'll talk to you. And also too, if you're thinking about community outreach in September, October, please get a hold of the Fresno City Schools plans for the kids, so you can not, plan something on one of their big events, back to school nights or their Halloween extravaganza or something. So, kind of coordinate with that as well. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And finally, we have a few more hands, or one more hand. I see Brandy News Viegas. Brandy, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Hi, I actually want to piggyback, on things we said before and what Lisa said. We have a very vast and diverse community, and that is one of the strong points for Fresno, and would like to see make sure that representation is there through outreach. I know that is an area that the city needs to improve in, is ways to be able to reach out to the community. I'm part of 2 Fresno art organizations, and since I didn't speak to them beforehand, I won't necessarily say which ones they are because I'm without talking to them, I wouldn't be a representative, but on a board of one. And I certainly see that we would want to partner with in any way we can in outreach, but want to make sure that we have people who are creative, who have a voice, who have their culture, that would love to make sure that Fresno and each of the different facets of our community are represented in this and are reached out to. So I want to piggyback on Lisa on encouraging that the consultant has a robust program for community outreach and gets it into, gets deeper into the community to ensure that people have a chance to get to participate in this, and look forward to what comes out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. And there are no more hands. Chair McCoy?
Thank you, City Clerk. I would like to bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Barraza, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ask city staff, there is a discussion about the outreach effort that would be taken, but also we already have an outreach process that is supposed to take place for parks, and WRT was hiring community groups that would be assisting in that process. And the question is, what type of coordination will exist for those community meetings that will take place connected with the parks, the green space, but also the opportunities to do the art and culture workshops, in a combined fashion. And I also wanted to make the observation that our experience in Southeast Fresno has been that it's very important to be connected with the Fresno Unified School District, with the high schools, the elementary schools, the middle schools, for a lot of art projects, hands-on activities that can occur at those parks. And it's a lot more successful when the parents and children from those schools participate. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Commissioner Vang, I see your hand up.
First, I just really wanted to a shout out to Lydia over at Fresno Art Council. She really put together a lot of the efforts and work. Her and her team did a lot of great job. The process was long, and I know the timeline is longer than expected. But I think we, as commissioners, for myself, we've been listening to our constituents saying, let's do it right versus let's not rush it. And I think there was a lot of when is it the right time to make sure this culture and art plan comes in place? Do we rush it or do we wait? And so I really just want to send gratitude to Lydia because her voice does matter. I want you to feel that you have been a part of our helping us make these decisions just with everything you have done. Just a great job to you and your team. And then I also want to give Audi a praise because she has also been helping us through this whole process, give us information and also helping us make a better decision with my Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Park. It was very, I would say, we met a few times. We met a few times, but a lot of good conversation around who we chose. And I hope that the person the vendor that we chose will be impactful to our community. And I hope that by listening to our constituent today, the community engagement will definitely be a big part of this culture and art plan. I'm not sure if I can make a recommendation or an effort, but for those 4 community in-person meetings and those 2 virtual community meetings, I think that it's important that I think our commissioners have voices. And so we can all agree where the location would be if possible, or have input in those community meetings. So we're all in the same space we have done a lot on our end already, but I also want to lean on my commissioner to say, hey, why don't we come together and help support that schedule if that's an opportunity for us to do. But again, I just want to thank everyone who has been really putting so much effort into this culture and art plan. Is a long way. I've been getting a lot of phone calls. When is it happening? When do we get to come and speak in front of the commissioner? When do we get to talk about how we can input? Do we bid in, contracts, or how do we bid in? Is there other way that we can support this culture and art? And I think by seeing tonight what Aldi presented, I think we're moving, maybe not as fast as we want to, but it's coming to light. The tunnel looks brighter now. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. Dr. Apuda, I see your hand up.
Yes, I want to thank the commissioners and the committee for the work that they've done to choose the consultant for this work. I'm sure it's challenging to do the work and make that selection, and I honor your selection. I also have a question with this being NCAP being an organization in New York City. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you plan to support them in being intentional about understanding California in general and Fresno specifically as they do their work?
I can take that, and I would also ask the clerk to promote Lydia Chavez, as she helped facilitate this process and has a very keen understanding related to. She's also raising her hand. I think we were thinking the same thing.
And
but I'll just take a stab before Lydia gets promoted, Commissioner Apuda, and that was a question that the selection panel had, and I apologize, my voice is low. I'm battling not feeling well. But that was also a question that the selection committee had, right? Because it was like, whoa, the East Coast, and we have this strong desire for local, and they have demonstrated that they've gotten into some, unique places. They've done work in Brooklyn, and they've been able to be successful maybe in challenging cities in Chicago and some others. And so they have experience with diverse populations, and they've also demonstrated that it's very important for them to be boots on the ground here in the city of Fresno. Specifically, in negotiations when we were talking about, ways to cut down, et cetera, we talked about the potential of having, the kickoff meeting be virtual. And they said, no, it's really important that we're there in the city of Fresno for that kickoff. Like, that's going to set the tone of this whole plan. And that's not something that we're willing to sacrifice. And I felt like that came across very well and was true to their intentions. And they also demonstrated that they do want to hear what we have to say and take into account all the stakeholders that we have here, and where should we go for community meetings and how do we reach our community. There was this talk about the survey and that being just like, it feels like maybe a blanket way to connect with the community. And so, open to feedback about how can we make that the best useful survey. So I know that they're open to that and they want to hear from you all as well as the stakeholders in the city of Fresno. And I'll let Lydia add anything else that she would like to.
Thank you, Aldi. Unfortunately, I was not involved in the negotiation with the finalizing of this contract, but certainly the comments that Aldi made are appropriate with regard to their demonstrated interest in being here in Fresno and getting to know the community. But I would have to say that that alone is not going to do it. As the Arts Council and one who will be working very closely with many of the arts organizations in the Fresno community to be able to ensure that they participate actively in this process, that's going to be very important. We expect to hold their hand through this process to make sure that they speak to all parts of the community, that they know where they should be hosting their meetings, and that they access the information from all corners of Fresno, because they are from the outside. We knew that in making the selection, but they have the experience with working with lower socioeconomic populations, which we thought was significant for us, as well as a very keen understanding of what cultural arts communities might look like in communities that are as diverse as ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. First, I would like to say thank you to Lydia for all your hard work and always making sure that we keep art here for our youth, and we're always talking about ways to improve our art, and also to Aldi on the presentation. Thank you very much. My question is, once the consultant is selected, will they come in front of the commission to present their plan on how to do community engagement for the work of the committee? I just know that community engagement is very, very important. You guys have heard this since we started this commission, and it's very important that we try to hear everyone's voice on this matter and get their input included. So I was just wondering, what would that time frame look like, and when would they be coming back to this commission to do a presentation on their work and how they're going to tackle community engagement and involve everyone?
Great question, Chair McCoy. And it kind of made me smile a little bit, because something that this proposer did was build in a component for planning. And I think it's almost like it feels like, oh, we're we're wasting time. We're not developing, right, the plan. And so there's months built in for planning, right, getting it right, getting the research right, getting the community engagement right. And so they will put together a plan. I will tell you that the way that the timeline is, it's only 10 months, so it's not very long. They're going to have a quick turnaround on feedback. So of course, we would like for your guys' input to be included in that. I just say that it might be, if it's not a regularly scheduled meeting, we might need to have an additional meeting to get that accomplished. But I definitely think it's important for you all to see that plan and to be able to provide input to them related to the community engagement aspect.
Thank you. And I think anything that the commissioners can bring to the table in regards to community engagement should be taken in consideration as well, since we all I feel are community organizers by trade. We do this work on a daily basis. We have a network of residents that we work with and that we talk to in the community. So being able to recommend how to do community engagement and which groups to reach out to or where to hold meetings at will be very, very important in this process. And I do see that I have Commissioner Barraza's hand up again, so you have the floor. And then I'll get to you, Lilia.
Madam Chair, I did not get an answer to my question, but it sounds like community engagement is under development. And I think using the expertise of folks that have done it in other places, we'll know if it's a good idea to combine it with the parks outreach effort or whether the arts and culture components versus the green space components, whether they're handled separately. I was interested because of the economies of scale if you do it in a more efficient fashion, but I was just trying to see if initially Lilia may have an observation whether there might be a separate process altogether when you're dealing with art and culture.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Will anyone be able to answer Commissioner Barraza's question? I do apologize for that, Commissioner Barraza.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Barraza, I think it's a very interesting question, and I am open to the idea. However, I don't want to overcommit and underdeliver because we have two different consultants here on two different timelines. And not to say that they're reaching different audiences. There could definitely be overlap and even more community engagement if we overlapped. But it's something we can definitely look into and see if that's a possibility. Right now, we're working with WRT on next steps related to the parks. They have a plan to come into town and look at some parks. So they're kind of moving on two different pathways, but I think it's good of you to point out, and we will definitely be cognizant of if those could have some overlap.
Thank you.
Lilia, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
Just Chair McCoy, I think that your point is a good one in terms of identifying a time that the consultant specifically returns to the commission. And so now that Aldi is in the process of negotiating with them and before the contract is finalized, it should be included in their plan that they will make a presentation to the commission. I think that's something that that should be asked for and expected.
Agreed, Lilia, and we have created space for that in the scope of their work.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have any questions in regards to this item? I see no hands raised. My Commissioner Parks, Commissioner Singh, I know you're in chambers. Do you have any questions regarding this item?
Thank you, Chair McCoy. I've been trying to formulate how to ask this question. I'm a little bit concerned that Lilia and the Arts Council wasn't fully engaged in the negotiation on the scope of work. And I understand that it's the city that's contracting with this consultant, but I guess I heard you say, Lilia, that you're in support of this, but I just want to, affirm that you're in support of this because I think the Arts Council's input and your input in particular is critical given the process that we went through. And one other comment that I'll make is I was actually pleased to see that the contract amount was doubled. I think it's going to mean we get a more complete and robust plan. So I think that's a good thing. We all want, stuff to happen sooner rather than later, but the increased timeline, I think, creates more space to do it right. So those are my comments.
And just if I can respond, Chair McCoy, yes, I am in support of moving this plan forward. my comments with relation to not having been actively involved in the negotiation with the consultant are very real. I think moving forward, I would like to be more closely involved in working with the consultants as they move forward. I think that's going to be critical to ensure that we get the kind of plan that speaks to Fresno and Fresno's needs. But that being said, I think overall what we're moving forward with is a good plan, and I am in support of it.
Thank you. Aldi, is there any way that we can make sure that Lilia is involved in every step of the plan in every capacity to help guide the consultant?
Chair McCoy, of course, we have in the scope built in essentially where we write, the city of Fresno, we have the Fresno Arts Council. So we anticipate Lilia and her team at the Arts Council being present throughout the building of this plan.
Thank you. I just feel, in my opinion, that Lilia provides a lot of knowledge in regards to art in the city of Fresno, and that her knowledge will be essential to making sure that this plan moves forward and is implemented right. So that's why I'm raising those concerns or asking those questions. So thank you for that answer. Is there any other questions on this item from the commissioners? If not, do I have a motion to make a recommendation to the city council to approve on appropriation of $150,000 for a consultant service agreement to develop the City of Fresno Cultural Arts Plan?
Motion?
So moved. Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Oputa.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. Is there a second?
Commissioner Vane.
Thank you, Commissioner Vane. City Clerk, may you do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang.
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan is absent, and Chair McCoy.
Yes. And before I adjourn the meeting, I just also want to give a big shout out to the subcommittee for the Cultural Arts Plan. You guys did a really good job, and I just want to give a shout out to you guys. I know it was hard work, but you got it done, and we got a recommendation to approve the consultant, so good job. And I really appreciate all you guys' hard work. And I really miss seeing you guys' faces. Can't wait to see you again next time. And I will adjourn this meeting at 7:31. And you guys go spend time with your families and have a good evening. Thank you all.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.